Today, we're going to dive into the world of an artist who doesn't just write music, he kind of performs an excavation of the soul. We were talking about Nick Cave, a true one-of-a-kind figure who has spent a lifetime turning pain into this profound and often brutal kind of beauty.
And that right there, that single idea is really the key to unlocking his entire body of work. For him, you see, it's not about crafting hit songs. It's about bearing witness. It's about turning the raw, messy truth of being alive into art.
That's exactly it. You know, listening to Nick Cave, it almost feels like you're in church, attending a sermon on the human condition. It's the place where the sacred and the profane are always talking to each other. He kind of becomes this preacher for our own doubts and our deepest, darkest desires.
So, where on earth did this completely unique voice come from? Well, to really understand the artist, we have to go way back to the beginning, to a life that was pretty much defined by conflict.
He grew up in rural Australia, and right from the get-go, it seems like there were these two powerful, opposing forces just pulling him in completely different directions.
I mean, a real battle was raging inside him. On one side, you had his father, an English professor who gave him his deep love for classic literature and the grand mythic language of the Bible. But on the other side was his own raw, rebellious energy, this primal need to just scream, to lash out, and to give a voice to his demons.
And that internal war? Well, it found its perfect, and I mean violent, expression in his first major band, The Birthday Party. Let me tell you, this was not music you could just put on and relax to. Not at all.
They were an absolute force of nature. Their sound was jagged, punishing, and totally uncompromising. Their live shows were legendary for just how confrontational and chaotic they were. But you know, that kind of fire, it just burns out way too fast. The band literally tore itself apart, but from those very ashes, something new was about to rise.
So, the chaos had to evolve. It had to, or it would have just completely consumed him. The demon shouter, the primal screamer, he needed to transform into something else entirely. A storyteller.
And this year, 1983, marks that critical turning point. The Birthday Party is dead, and from its remains, Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds are born.
Now, this wasn't just a new band, it was a whole new philosophy. I mean, the raw energy was definitely still there, but now it was being channeled, it was focused, it was being used to build entire worlds, to create these unforgettable characters, and to explore those timeless themes of love, death, and God.
And the range here is just incredible. On one hand, you have the mercy seat, this frantic, terrifying story told from the perspective of a man about to be executed. Then you have the sublime, prayer-like beauty of Into My Arms, and of course the myth-making of Red Right Hand, which created a character so iconic it's become a permanent part of our culture.
And this was the moment his storytelling just exploded into the mainstream. The album, and especially that haunting duet Where the Wild Roses Grow with pop superstar Kylie Minogue, proved that Cave's dark, literary tales could absolutely captivate millions.
So for decades, Nick Cave was the master storyteller of darkness. He wrote about it, he explored it, he made myths out of it. But then, darkness stopped being a subject he could control and became his reality.
This year, 2015, it's like a fault line that runs right through his life and his art. Everything that came before is completely separate from everything that came after. The world he had so masterfully written about in his songs had now collapsed right on top of him.
The music that followed was what was almost unrecognizable. Skeleton Tree is this record of just raw, immediate shock. It's full of fractured lyrics and these haunting, ambient sounds. And then came Ghosteen, which feels less like a collection of songs and more like this vast, quiet space for grief and for spiritual questioning.
And this is the crucial shift. You have to understand this. Before the tragedy, Cave was a narrator. He was looking into the abyss and reporting back on what he saw. After, he was singing from inside of it. The art was no longer a performance or some clever story. It became a direct transmission of pain, of loss, and of that desperate search for meaning that comes after. Now, this profound, life-altering change didn't just alter his music. It completely altered his relationship with his audience, which led to his most direct and vulnerable work yet.
He started a project called The Red Hand Files, and it's a really simple concept. Fans write to him with any question they want, and he answers. But the results? Well, they're anything but simple.
See, people don't ask him about his favorite guitar or what it was like to tour in the 80s. They ask about the deepest things a person can ask. How do we live with grief? Where do we find hope? What is the purpose of all this suffering?
And in his responses, that mythic, untouchable rock star persona just dissolves completely. What you're left with is a man, a human being grappling with these exact same questions himself, offering not easy answers, but a shared humanity, and this profound sense of empathy that was clearly born from his own devastating experience.
So, at the end of the day, that's what his journey has really been about. From the pure chaos of the birthday party to the quiet contemplation of his recent work, he has been on this relentless, lifelong search for beauty in the absolute darkest corners of the human experience.
And that's why he matters so much. Listening to Nick Cave isn't a passive thing. It's not background music. It demands something from you, and in return, it offers this deeper understanding of what it means to be flawed, to suffer, and somehow find the strength to love anyway.
Which really just leaves us with one final question. In a world that's so full of suffering, can a song, or a poem, or a confession, can it truly offer us some form of salvation? Nick Cave has spent his entire life trying to find out.